Okay. Okay, and can I say hello and welcome you all, and delighted you can all join us for this Challenge of Rural Leadership webinar. And before I hand over to the Master of the Worshipful Company of Farmers for the official welcome, just a few things. One, that we'd like you to send in your questions to our speakers this morning. We're delighted for your questions, and please use the question and answer function to submit your questions during the talks this morning, and we'll perhaps have one or two questions in between speakers, but mainly towards the end, when we'll ask all the speakers to have a go at the questions that you've sent in. We should be running the 25th Challenge of Rural Leadership course this week, and hence we thought it would be really very nice to put everyone together who had applied for this 25th course, for people who expressed an interest, want to know a little bit more about it, and to invite our friends, alumni as well to join us. Might wish to add some of their own comments as we go through. We've got three main speakers for you during our hour, or a little longer than an hour this morning, and Rachel Hellas, Terry Jones, and Adam Bedford, and I'm delighted and really thankful that they're able to join us. And today's going to be more about wisdom, I hope, rather than knowledge. Knowledge, as you probably know, is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put a tomato in a fruit salad. Thanks to my daughter for that definition. So really, without further ado, I just wanted to say, as the Worshipful Company, who are so supportive continually, and kicked off the course with the idea over 25 years ago, are with us with us today. And so, without further ado, can I hand over to the Master of the Worshipful Company, Richard Whitlock, to say a welcome to you all. Richard.
Hello, I'm Richard Whitlock, the Master of the Worshipful Company of Farmers, a one-year appointment. Our farmers' livery is very pleased to be associated with the Duchy College, who run our courses. And it's not what we want delivered as a Worshipful Company of Farmers, it's what our delegates want. And we're very pleased to work with the Duchy on that basis. If I can just give you 2 points to consider that I've always looked upon during my career. One is to have people that you can associate with that inspire you. One of them was my first crop husbandry lecturer at college, a chap who was quite a bit older than me, I thought at the time. He eventually became Professor John Wibberley, that some of you may know. And he was one of my first inspiring people. I met him about 30 years later and realized that he's only about 6 or 7 years older than me. He seemed so much older than when I was at college. The other one was my first employer, Richard Banks, who I still keep closely associated with. So link with people that inspire you is the first point. Second point, set career goals for your business, for your life, or just for your own personal aspirations. Short, medium, and long term. Regularly review them, and sometimes it's not wrong to change your career goals. I'm going to finish with that and just say welcome and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Master Richard for kicking us off, and takes us really straight into our first speaker. I'm delighted that Rachel Ellis can join us. Rachel is a beef and sheep farmer and did the course in 2020, and so some more immediate reflections. Other speakers will have did the course further ago, and indeed the person that we're speaking to at the end, Gavin, did the first course in 1996. So really, without further ado, thank you for joining us, Rachel, and a chance perhaps for some reflections on the course from you. Over to you, Rachel.
Rachel, you're on mute.
I'm done. Okay. Sorry, my technical inabilities there. I do apologise. So thank you, Richard. Thank you very much for inviting me to get involved in this webinar today. I can't believe it's 12 months since I absolutely petrified myself, drove down to Devon in my daughter's little Susie Panda and met a group of people that, to be quite honest, are still very much part of my life today. Just to give you a little bit of information regarding me and our farm, I'm a beef and sheep farmer. I never was going to be a farmer. I'm a farmer's daughter. I've milked cows, I've delivered milk, I've looked after animals, but it wasn't for me. I went and got myself a job, and then I did the ultimate sin and fell in love and married a farmer. And when we took on my husband, Stephen, his family farm, we had one choice to make. And the choice was, did we run away from major debt and start a new life elsewhere, or did we take that debt on with two very young children, and did we try and create something for myself and the rest of the family? And we chose the latter. And for me, going on the course last year was a culmination of, say, 15 years extremely hard work on the farm, of trying to survive, and it allowed me to put clarity behind where we wanted to go in the future. And if I could explain to you now that I just prior to dialing into this, I've been typing up the minutes of a business management meeting that myself, my husband, and my two now adult children were actually had yesterday about the future of the business. I think that might give you an indication as what a CRL course can do to you as a person. For us, and I do call it as us because I went away in the course, and I do remember something that Richard and Jeff said to me just before we left the course. They said, don't go home thinking that everybody's in the same mindset that you are. You just spent 2 weeks learning so many different things, learning about yourself, learning about your abilities, and so you've got so many ideas racing about your head. Don't take it home and expect everybody to be in the same place as you. And it's taken 12 months to actually get all those ideas, everything that I learned from all those speakers that came to that course, to actually put that into fruition now. So I thought I'd just give you a little indications to how we've used, or how I'm using what I learned in that course in our business today. So we're a beef and sheep farm. We're tenant farmers with Yorkshire Water, who are the second largest landowner in Yorkshire. When we first took on the farm, we very much realised that we couldn't do it on our own. The only thing we had to our name was a tenancy. We didn't have anything else at all. Certainly didn't have any money. The farm was in quite a poor state, through all different sorts of reasons. It's not necessarily through to the want of trying. And we needed to get somebody alongside to help us. And this was cemented in the course as well. You need to have people to believe in you, and you need to believe in them. You need to build that network of people around you. And way back when we took the tenancy on, the first thing I did, I made 2 phone calls. The first one was to the bank to say, I know we're in a mess. can you work with us, please? And the second one was to the landlord to say exactly the same. And through developing those relationships over the last 15 years, we now found ourselves with what the course reminded me was a team of people that actually support us. And for us as a family, the course also reminded me that that team is my family as well. It's me, it's my husband, it's my children. And the only way we can actually get anywhere is by building that team around you. So we started out as a dairy farm. We weren't going anywhere fast. My husband had milk cows since the age of 15, like a lot of dairy farmers. We knew I was doing spreadsheet after spreadsheet, explaining to my husband that we weren't making any money. At the time, we had 2 young children. I was working full time too, and we were also delivering milk. It wasn't a nice life to have. We ultimately sold the milk cows, moved into suckle cow production. We chose a pedigree herd. We went down the route of, rather crazily at the time, I decided I want to show these cattle with pedigree. What's the point in having them if you're not going to show them? And got abandoned by my husband on a Sunday evening with a home-trained heifer at the Great Yorkshire Show, and wondered what the hell I was doing there, and won my class. And all of a sudden, guess what? Husband was really excited about showing pedigree beef cows. So we've developed a pedigree beef herd. We concentrated on a commercial flock at home of sheep, hill sheep. We made some massive mistakes with the sheep over the years. We decided to follow the market, to create a farm, make out it isn't, and we didn't do a very good job with it. So we learned a lot, we wasted a lot of money, and we've now reduced our sheep numbers. We found a pinch point on the farm where the sheep actually now working profitably for the farm. And I'd like to think that we're not doing too bad. We've finally got ourselves out of the historic debts, and we have a very much an open door policy on the farm where anybody can come and talk about what we're doing. We'll show everybody what we're doing. And best of all, the children have actually realised that if you want to do anything in life, you can't just go and do it on your own. You need to have people around you to support you in what you're doing. So for us, and as I say, it is very much on us, the CRL has cemented all those things that I guess right back at the beginning of our career in farming was that you need the partnerships around you. And I think we're really heading towards a very exciting time for our industry. And I'm using the word exciting carefully because a lot of people will find it absolutely petrifying as well. And to be honest, I do on many an occasion. But when I sat down with my husband and my children yesterday at my kitchen table, and we all brought our ideas forward for the future, it suddenly dawned on me, I'm 50 years of age now. In 10 years' time, this is not going to be my farm. It's going to be my children's farm. And I have a job to do now. And my job is to ensure that the children, sounds so patronising when they're young adults, are in a situation where they can take the business forward how they want to take it forward. They can take ownership of the business. And it was so exciting and so invigorating for me and my husband that they both rocked up at the kitchen table with an A4 book each with ideas as to where they want to go. And 12 months on from going on a CRL course, all those ideas, all those ways of learning how to lead suddenly came to fruition. And it's been a chip way all the way through, but all of a sudden they were there. And now we've got an exciting future ahead where the children are wanting to do direct beef sales. I've got a daughter who's wanting to do educational tours on the farm, albeit on social media and using this sort of facility at the moment. We've got a son who's wanting to up the cattle and sheep numbers. We're looking at investing in infrastructure. And all the while, It's not me and Stephen driving it anymore, it's the children driving it now. And all the while, I believe in them, but more to the point, they believe in us. They believe that we trust them. So there's a lot of things from the leadership course that are now coming to fruition, and anybody that's been on the course will understand what I mean. It's not a quick fix to what you're wanting to do, and it's all about finding out what's inside you to be able to bring it out, to actually put it into practice. It's quite difficult to explain. When we first got there 12 months ago, and we're all stood outside sort of like shuffling around like new people going into a new school, looking at each other and not exactly knowing what exactly it was that we were doing. But about an hour later, we're all clambering on chairs, hanging onto each other for grim death, trying to remember what each other's names was. It makes you take away your inhibitions. It allows you to actually take a step back, take a breath, and actually realise what your capabilities are. And I think that's what it's allowed me to do at home, because even though I'm a mom, I still guess you've got to lead, and that's what's come to the fore now. So it's really difficult to get across as to how much it's actually mattered and how much it's done to our business. But for me, it genuinely has meant that we've got self-belief now. And I honestly don't think I would have been in the position that I am now within our own business at home had I not spent that 2 weeks away, absolutely petrified, wondering what on earth I was attending the CRL course. I don't think you guys actually do realise just how much it can deliver to an individual. And I will mention the word balcony. Richard, I have stood on that balcony so many times now, but every now and again, you're quite right, you've got to get on the dance floor and just find out what is going on with everybody else, because you can't do this on your own. You need to build your team around you, and the CRL has certainly taught me that you need to build your team around you. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody's got any questions for me. I could answer all sorts of questions about what's going on in the farm or where we're developing the business, but I'm afraid I'm not very good at this sort of presentation sort of thing. I'm better off with questions, if I'm quite honest. So if anybody's got any questions that they want to ask, then I'm more than willing to answer them. If that's okay, Richard.
Yeah, that's fine. Can you still hear me?
I can indeed, yes.
Good. Thank you, Rachel, very much indeed. I've just lost the question, but interesting, really interesting, Rachel, and thank you for being so honest and opening up about the joys and problems that you have overcome. And great to hear that you're looking ahead and looking at moving so almost transferring the farm over the next 10 years and seeing it to someone else. So almost you're just a custodian of the farm at the moment.
I think we all are custodians of our farms anyway, Richard, I think, to be quite honest. And I think that's something that farmers tend to forget sometimes, that, you know, we're only here for a short period of time in the grand scheme of things. And my job 15, 20 years ago was to create this business alongside my husband, whereas now our job is to facilitate our children, because they want it, to take it the next 10, 15, 20 years. And I think that's where we're actually at now. So yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting, Richard, that, you know, I could get really afraid of what's about to come for our industry. There are, as you say, there are challenges ahead, but when you've got two youngsters snapping at your heels with ambition, my God, it doesn't have to kick you up the bum and make you get started again. It really does.
Thank you, Rachel. And just you hinted earlier on that you may still be in contact with the people from last year. Could you just expand on that, Rachel?
Yeah, I know. So that team that I have is not just my landlord and my bank manager and my family. It's my CRL group as well. So we are in touch with each other every day by WhatsApp. And I know full well that there is a group of people there that will keep me in check, which I do need it on quite a few occasions as well. But they will also, if I've got any ideas, or if any of us have any ideas or any concerns about what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're doing it, then you just throw it in the mix and you will get an honest reaction back. And that in itself is just worth so much. It's that check on what you're doing all the time.
Rachel, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to move on now, Rachel, because I know there's questions, but I'd like perhaps a number of the questions for the panel, all three of you rather than just yourself. So thank you for kicking off, Rachel. It was really brilliant and really from the heart. So that was great. Thank you. We'll come back to you later on as part of the panel with the questions. It's now really my pleasure to introduce Terry Jones, who did the CRL course a little longer ago, Terry, I think it's fair to say. 17 years by my accounting, around 2004. So perhaps with Terry, what we'll be able to do is take the longer view of CRL and what it's meant to Terry. As most of you know, Terry is Director General of the NFU, and but he hasn't always been with the NFU. And many people who come on the course are at a stage of life or their career when they're thinking of a change, and they're looking at that life and work balance and what is in it and what they should be doing moving forward. So really looking forward, Terry, to hearing your reflections. And can I invite you to speak now, Terry? Thank you.
Richard, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Look, I'm delighted to be here, but unfortunately, having to prepare for something like this, given that you're asking me to reflect on some time ago. I mean, you do have to dredge your memory banks, and I had to go all the way back to 2004, which for me seems like a long time ago. But it is amazing what you remember. And I think my first memory was the selection day at the Farmers and Fletchers Hall, and one industry grandee, probably I think a retired or recently retired agricultural banker, and I going at it hammer and tongs about what the NFU was or wasn't doing at the time. And I can remember that the chair of the selection panel had to step in and break it up. And I'm actually not sure that the selectors ever really got to hear why I would be a good candidate for CRL, and actually I'm to this day amazed that I got on the course. But to both Richards, I'm sure it's a much more civilized process these days, and things have changed. And thanks to Richard and to Ali for the invitation to speak today. Richard, you gave me a quick thumbnail introduction. I just wanted to, I suppose, just expand on that a little bit. As DG, I lead the staff side of the NFU, and you'll all be very familiar with the activities of our president, Minette Batters. But my task day to day is to lead that team of full and part-time members of staff, because of course roughly half of our guys, group secretaries, are employed by us, but run agencies for the mutual. But it's leading a team of 750, and as well having the great privilege of working with the industry leaders that you'll be very familiar with, and that team, that kind of unique partnership of professional staff and well-briefed members trying to create a better future for the NFU's farming members. Now, when I did the course, I was a short way into my first stint at the NFU. I'm a sort of a returning, I had a brief sabbatical, which I'll talk about in a second. And in that first stint, I was there for about 9 years before I went off to run trade associations in the food industry. I was 3.5 years with the Food and Drink Federation and about 18 months with PTF, a really old trade body that nobody's heard of. When I was there, I think it was 127 years old, and I was only the 4th Director General in its 127-year history. So I ruined the batting average by only doing 18 months with them. But I had the tap on the shoulder to come back to the NFU, an organisation which I've really enjoyed being part of, and you can make a meaningful difference on behalf of an industry that you really care about. I mean, the passion that came through in Rachel's presentation for her farm and for her business. It is, farming is something that's relatively easy to lobby for because it's such a great cause, whereas perhaps lobbying for the food industry throughout that period, particularly the work that we had to do on public health, may at times have been slightly less rewarding. I wanted to just spend a few moments today reflecting on the importance of leadership, particularly to our organisation. But I think what I'll say is probably applicable to lots of places in agriculture. I mean, first and foremost, obviously, leadership is important because we've got lots of staff. Although what I will say is that in the past, we probably valued technical expertise over leadership or adaptive leadership, or however you want to describe it. But that is something that we've invested very heavily in the last 4.5 years as part of our 2000 days strategy. We recognized that we needed to grow our knowledge and skills, and that we could do that through acquisition, through development, and so on. And we very much put leadership at the top of that. So we are trying to equip our people to be better leaders, of course, technical leaders, but also having to lead teams, and often trying to lead or influence without necessarily having authority over members, because we're there to advise in the same way I suppose that the civil service is there to advise ministers and others. But it's still an organisation run by its members for its members. But I think leadership in that context is important as well. And look, I suppose reflecting on where we now find ourselves, and I don't normally look like this, sat like I'm about to read you a bedtime story. I'd normally be doing something like this from Stoneleigh Park, and I'd have a shirt and tie on. But I'm really pleased that we did that, given the place we now find ourselves, because we're now running an organisation that is all about people, that is all about contact between people. And if we're going to service our members from dining rooms, from spare bedrooms, then having good teams, and Rachel talks about the importance of good teams, but having well-led teams is really important. And so that investment in leadership, I think, is definitely paid off. I mean, we're having to do a lot to keep everybody together and keep everybody motivated, but leadership's a huge part of that. Now, CRL, I think, has been a component, has been part of that journey, although I think it is perhaps by accident rather than by design. So in 2004, when I did the course, I was likely, I think, only the first or possibly the second NFU staffer that had attended CRL. And now we regularly have NFU colleagues attending. I think last year or the year before, there were 2 or 3 from my team that were on the course. And I think, again, it's slightly by accident, because people are looking at their own development with their line managers, thinking about their development needs. But CRL is now a kind of established thing that their colleagues will recommend, and people at the right stage of their career, I was going to talk about that in a second, have seen this as an important opportunity and really grasped it with both hands. The other reason that leadership is important to us is that we need to constantly adapt as an organisation, and particularly we need to get the balance right between representation, which you would say is it's on the tin, it's the thing that we've got to do, but also I think we have to lead as an organisation. And look, the NFU prides itself on providing solutions to the policy challenges that so many of you will be well aware of. I mean, we could be a trade body that says no a lot. The reality is, particularly at the moment, particularly when one considers that we've got a majority government of 80, that's a strategy that probably isn't going to get you very far. And throughout our history, there have been moments where we've had to do this. Whether it was on farm assurance following BSE, whether it was the creation of VI to head off a pesticide tax, the campaign for the farmed environment to deal with compulsory set aside that Hilary Benn wanted to bring in, or bring us right up to date, the urea consultation and the new fourth way that's emerged to deal with that. These are all responses developed by that unique partnership I referred to earlier to respond to challenges that are coming forward from policymakers. But it does require leadership, because very often members won't necessarily know or understand that this is something that you need to do, and you need to take them on that journey. It's all about storytelling very often. It's all about a compelling narrative that helps people understand where you find yourself and how and why you're now advocating a particular solution. And it's very much a feature of life in trade bodies. It was something we did a lot at FDF, although of course it's a lot easier to pull the levers there, because you're dealing with much bigger businesses that are able to make changes themselves. I need to come on to what I got out of the course specifically to match what Rachel did so eloquently previously. And I'll kick off by saying, look, it was a long time ago, but what I would say is that different people do get different things. And of course, it's quite a broad, broad church in terms of the people that attend it. So I know that there were people on the course that got a huge amount out of the media training, whereas perhaps I didn't get so much out of that, not least as I think at that time it was being run by Ian Johnson, who was the NFU's own regional communications officer, who's quite an argumentative old sod, and I think he and I just sort of used it as an opportunity to settle old scores. But in all seriousness, what was really good for me was the leadership theory, but also its application. And the real standout moment for me was listening to Dr. Brian Watters from the Defence Leadership Organisation, and he's somebody I've stayed in touch with and used to talk to our leaders in the NFU. And as somebody who's a great believer in learning from other leaders in action, that part of the course was hugely helpful. I mean, there are a number of people, to pick up on what Richard Whitlock said at the start of today's webinar. He talked about people that inspired him, but there are any number of people throughout my career that I've learned from. Richard McDonald, a former DG in the NFU, Richard Evans, who was the boss at PepsiCo and president of FDF when I was director of communications there. But I think what CRL does is that it helps you to understand what was good about each of those individuals and how you might practically be able to adapt your style depending on the role that you find yourself and the situation that you find yourself in at any particular moment in time. I suppose being in the position that I'm in now, but also a number of the jobs since 2004, a lot of the sessions on the course, again, where you're talking about leadership, where you're talking about the importance of sharing a vision, either in the sort of pure or applied settings, because of course you meet these amazing people that I'm going to come on to talk about. The importance of listening, learning to trust, being trustworthy yourself, the importance of monitoring and feedback. I mean, these are all really important things that you learn about and hear about on the course, and that maybe not consciously, but they're things that you picked up at that time and that you've been able to apply since then. So in thinking about today, I suppose I've looked back and I've still got the CRL file on in the office above my desk, and from time to time I have picked it up and I have looked through when I've thought, when I've been trying to track down particular theories or particular moments from that course that I think might help me. But aside from the content, there were two things that I really look back on. Bear in mind I was in my early 30s at the time. The first was the gift of time to think, time to be with people who were brimming with ideas. And I suppose today, when I find myself speaking to Nuffields on the odd occasion where I've spoken to CRL or others who've taken the time to do the sorts of courses that we're talking about today, my first remark is always to congratulate them on taking this decision, because it's no mean feat to take 2 weeks out of your business to do this. I think it's a really good decision, and I think it's the right decision. Rachel, I think, brought to life really well the impact it had. And thinking about the organisation I'm involved with today, I talk to my team a lot about creating the space to think. Getting stuff done is important, but I think that time to think through problems, to begin to piece together solutions, is important for any business. But to the point that I made earlier about the critical importance of having solutions when it comes to policy and campaign challenges, then we're the NFU, that territory that the NFU inhabits. Then time on the course, but time generally is a great commodity and one which we need to value. And the sort of allied point to that, and the second point to that, is inspiration. And this, I was delighted to hear Richard Whitlock say what he said earlier. But you're surrounded by people on the course with great stories and great businesses, and you meet those course members, but you also are exposed to these fantastic businesses that you visit as part of the course. Now, in my case, that manifested itself. The way it manifested itself wasn't great. That on the way back, I'd pretty much decided that I was going to leave the NFU and that I was going to go back to Wales and sort out the family business. I didn't, and thankfully a new challenge came along at the NFU, and I had that seriously enjoyable part of my career running the NFU's government affairs team, just at the time when Peter Kendall came to power, and getting to work on a wealth of issues, including the second foot and mouth disease outbreak and the Grocery Suppliers Code of Practice. And it was a really sort of chunky time at the end of the Labour years and the formative years of the coalition, if you can remember those. So look, in many ways, the course for me was at the right time in my career and in the right place for my career. And I suppose my advice, or the thing that I look back on, is that it's like so much in life. What you get out, what you put in. And I think there are a number of moments that have shaped my career and its direction, and CRL is definitely blended in with those, with the thoughts of those key influencers and inspirers that we talked about earlier, the conversations that you have with others, and just the experience of work. And again, like Rachel, I dare say the odd mistake as well. All of that comes together, and CRL is in there and has definitely helped. So Richard, thank you again for having me. It's great to come back and talk about this, and to have done some thinking about this, because it's one of those things that I did, and I do think about it, but I've not thought about it in this way for some time. So really looking forward to the discussion. I'd be really interested to hear whether my experience chimes with the others that have attended, but I hope as well it might just inspire some of the colleagues on this call, from the industry who are in two minds about whether to go on CRL. I hope it tips them over the edge. Thank you.
Terry, thank you so much. You've been so open, frank, and insightful. It's been great to hear you. And it certainly chimes with some of the things we've heard from Rachel. And it would be great. It's amazing how many people are on the call today. We're far more, about 100 more than we were expecting when we first set the thing up. So that's great. Terry, just one quick question. We've a snowball of questions that have come through, which we'll put to the whole panel first of all. But just one in terms of one question from James asking how you balance the business going for tomorrow versus developing the future.
What, at the NFU?
Yes.
Look, I think the key thing for us in that regard, and I need to be at this point, I've got the chairman of my audit committee on here in Rachel Hallos, so I need to make sure what I say measures up to the questions that she asked me last week. But look, the guiding principle in all of this, or the thing that we sort of unite behind, is that 2,000 days strategy. Having that very clear vision that's communicated to all staff, that they can see running as a golden thread throughout the plan for the organisation, means that even if we get blown off course, and we do get blown off course by events, that is always there, and we always know that we've got those 5 grows that we're trying to chase down around representative power, around knowledge and skills, as I said, around service to members, and non-subscription income and share of voice. And we've united behind those, and when the moment allows, we can come back to those and get the organisation back on track. But you can imagine the last 12 months, balancing the here and now, COVID, Brexit, plus everything else that the industry's had thrown at us, and in the last 24 hours is a case in point. TB consultation in England, NVZ decision in Wales. You do very quickly have to dust yourself down and say, okay, We now need to get back on with the business of, you know, having a strategic outlook for this business and taking it forward for the benefit of members for the long term.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Yep, really fascinating to think about those short-term versus long-term decisions. But we'll come back to you again after our next speaker, if we may, for a panel. So thanks, Terry. Joining us now is our third speaker, Adam Bedford. Adam, I'm delighted you can join us. Again, been on CRL for around 7 years ago, if my memory serves me correct. But also someone, Terry said that he'd been back occasionally to talk to the CRL group. You've been a regular attendee as someone who's been giving your thoughts for certainly around the last 5 years. And so really interesting to hear, Adam, your reflections on CRL and what it's meant to you, and perhaps what it means day to day to you going forward. So over to you, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And yeah, I've come back to speak at the course when we're meeting not like this, and I'm pleased to be able to do this again. And I think, you know, just thinking now when you've said that, you know, I'm thinking, why do I go and do that? I do that because the course was so powerful to me when I attended it, and you know, and some of the things that Rachel said about doing the course a year ago, and then Terry longer than that, that you're not necessarily in your day-to-day work thinking about the course all the time, but you are, you know, being asked to speak at something like this, you realize how much you're drawing it through your day-to-day life, and that's the reason why I enjoy coming to talk on the course. So I was just going to give some background on me, and almost reflecting on what stage was I at in my career at the time I went on the course, and what has that meant since. So I did the course in 2013, and at the time I just moved to the NFU office in Brussels. So I'd been working in the York office where I work now as regional director. I've been working there for 2 years, and got married the previous year. And you think, oh, why is he telling us all about his personal life? But I think it is, particularly, you know, in your late 20s, early 30s, there's a lot, depending, you know, if you choose to get married, there's quite a lot going on in your personal life, but also a lot going on in your professional life. And I got married, and also thought, I'm enjoying doing this job that I do in York, but, you know, is it possible to live somewhere else? And a job came up in Brussels. So I moved to Brussels in 2012, and then did the CRL course in 2013. And I think in many ways it came along at a good time, because I'd moved to Brussels and been there perhaps 6 months before the course came along in the January. And in many ways, moving to Brussels was a horrible shock. It turned out in the end really well. I really enjoyed myself and loved living there, and loved the work, which I'll come on to reflecting on the course. But I remember coming onto the course thinking, I really need this time away to think, what are we doing? Is this the right thing that we're doing? And you know, how do I prepare myself to get the best, to get the best from the experience that I've got? You know, I am ambitious in my career, like so many people are, and I hope that's why, you know, we've got a lot of people joining this call. I think that's the reason why we all want to go on courses such as this. So going on the course at that time, and I would agree with both Terry and Rachel on, it's not just the time spent away, it's the people that you meet as well, and the importance of that team around you. Not only is it a team around you, there's a significant number of people that I met on the course, which I'm still in contact with and regard as friends. But I suppose one of the, to try not to be too detailed about what the detail of the course is, because I remember when I applied for the course, I had all these people saying, oh, you should do this course is really good. And then you speak to people about it, and then you say, well, what's the course all about? And then they say, well, you should just do the course, it's really good. So I'm probably going to say exactly the same as people said to me, but I will do, without giving loads away, one bit that was just one session on the course, which is probably the most powerful bit and the most simple bit for me from the course, was working with somebody on sort of strategic thinking tools around the other point of view. It's just a session on the other point of view. And you think, oh, well, you know, we're all leaders in some way, whether that's in our farm businesses or at home, and we always think about the other point of view. But I realised since doing the course that reflecting on the other point of view in our leadership style or when we're working with others is absolutely fundamental. And I think where things can sometimes go wrong or aren't as successful as they could be is when people haven't adequately thought about the other point of view. And I'm not saying that I do this all the time, but I do know where things have gone wrong for me, or I wasn't as pleased as I could have been with something that I was working on, is where I hadn't adequately thought about the other point of view. And that was really, taking that on board and working on in Brussels on, lobbying on European issues or trying to build relationships with people. The importance of the other point of view is absolutely fundamental because, as Terry was talking about the work of the NFU around representing our members' interests, we have to do that, but particularly on European issues. And even now, if we think about the big issues on policy in the country, we've got two opposing sides on most things. We live in a very polarized world. And if we don't understand the other point of view on things, we might not get anywhere really when we're trying to put across what we want to get out of something. And sometimes we might scribble down the other point of view position on things if we had a briefing paper or a lobbying paper. Sometimes I might try and prepare for a meeting, and I'm certainly not saying that I do this all of the time, but I found it helpful to be preparing for a meeting and thinking, okay, what's that other person coming to this meeting with? And that helps from a lobbying point of view, but it also obviously it helps from a working with people point of view and a staff point of view. I think particularly at times like this during COVID, trying to manage people and work with teams of people. As a leader, and we're all trying our best to be the best we can, making sure that we're understanding that other point of view when they're there, and hoping as well that they understand our point of view. So that was really powerful for me, and also as well I've reflected on it as well. I mentioned getting married, and I would say this in front of my wife, and I've said this previously when I've come to talk in person at the course. The other point of view is really helpful in home life as well. We've all got a home life of some description, and I know my wife often says to me in discussions that she might start about something she wants to talk about, and say, "Well, this is all very interesting, Adam, but when did this conversation become about you?" So we've always got to guard against that, really. And I suppose I'm trying as well with a busy home life, like so many people. We have young children now, trying to get the work bit right, but also get the home bit right. And something that really spoke to me, I think we were told this when we were leaving the course as well, and Rachel mentioned it in her talk just now, that when you do the course, it's brilliant, but when you go home from the course or when you go back to your work, everybody you're interacting with, they haven't just been away for 2 weeks, so you've got to understand where they're coming from, and I think that equally can apply. If you're joining this and you're a farmer and you work in a farm business, or you work in a job similar to mine, that can equally apply when you come home, back to your home life as well, to make sure that you understand the other point of view at home, because you might not be in the same position at home as you are at work. And I've been reflecting on that this week. I nearly apologise at the beginning to say if the door opens and two small people come in, we'll just have to see how it goes, and they will have a few things to say because I'm homeschooling on my own this week. And I've been reflecting on the other point of view on what it must be like to be a teacher. So many people are giving hell to teachers about how maybe this is not so easy for for parents at home. But I've reflected on what it must be like to be a teacher, because I've been trying to do that at the same time. So I've spoke too much about the other point of view, Richard, but that was really was important to me, and I'll come to finish off now. Sort of the second really important point for me was the people that you meet and the honest appraisal that you get from them. I mentioned people who were on the course when I did it have now become friends, but they become more than that when you're on the course and afterwards, because you've been through the same process with them on a leadership course. So it means that you are completely honest with them, and they can be completely honest with you, and really tell it like it is, which I find really, really important. because often when we're asking opinions on things from people and from our friends, we probably often want them to say, yeah, you're right, or yeah, that's a good idea, when actually the best conversations probably arise from people really telling you how it is. And that's made me reflect when I did the course, can I do my best to be that person for others, whether that's in managing a team of people or amongst personal and professional friends, but I want people to do that for me as well. So I suppose I'll wrap up finally, and I'm not one, Richard, for like reading out inspirational quotes, except I read something this week which I really liked, and it said that success is something, but it could equally be leadership. And I read it on Twitter, and it was, success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And I think that's probably what we're all trying to do. And learning so much about leadership and about yourself on the leadership course is really helping with that process. So we're all trying our best, but none of us are experts wherever we're at in our career. But the CRL course can help us along.
Adam, thank you so much for that. And yeah, I'm sure we'd agree with those quotes, Adam. And well, after what you said, we were waiting for two little people to come through the door behind you. So they're obviously being very good this morning, and appreciate it's classic back to work-life balance at the moment, particularly for people who are homeschooling. So thanks for spending the time with us this morning. Adam, what I'm going to do is invite, if our technical team behind the scenes can bring Terry and Rachel back on screen. I'm going to introduce Jeff Kerr, who runs the course with me, the CRL course at Dartington. Hopefully we can bring Terry back, Sophie, and Jeff. Just introducing Jeff, who runs the course with me. And Jeff's been looking at a number of the questions coming through, a whole range of questions coming through. And I'm hoping that we can ask a question and maybe just dip in to each of you and see what you make of the question. So Jeff, over to you. You're on mute, Jeff, I think. We've all done it.
Unmuted, yes.
That's great.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. Back to the old folks and technology. We're catching up slowly. Thank you, and thanks to our speakers. Really, really helpful and useful and inspiring. And of course, it's inspired a load of questions, and we haven't got a lot of time to feed any questions back to you. So we're just going to pick a few out, which we hope represents some of the questions that have come in. But what I would say, any specific questions about the course, how much does it cost, etc., we'll be getting back to you on those through Ali and through Richard and I. We'll follow those up with you, so don't think they've been ignored. But if I could just pick up one question from the massive list that we've got here. How do you balance family versus profit versus sustainability? That's from Luke. Now, clearly that doesn't directly necessarily relate to your roles, Adam and Terry, but it's how do you balance within the business those things? And perhaps I could just ask you to elaborate. Did the course help you to think about that aspect of strategic management? Perhaps we could start off with Rachel.
Crikey, balancing family with profit and management. Okay. Oh my giddy aunt. Right. Okay. Do you know it's a really difficult one because it's very difficult to manage people that are your family because nature of the beast, that you are emotionally involved, and at the end of the day you can't shut the door and go home. You are there. It's there. And it's day in and day out, and it's 24 hours a day, and it's 7 days a week. For me, it's about building the relationships that you've got with those members of your family, and it's building that trust. And ultimately, you've got to take into consideration their, as Adam said, other point of view, because without it, you don't have anything that's sustainable. It's as simple as that. Who am I to tell anybody else what to do? It's got to be a team effort, especially in a farm business. It has got to be a team effort, and for me, that's how you've got to manage it. But it is a tricky line to follow on occasions.
Thank you, Rachel. Terry, a slightly different emphasis, but I know you've got many competing interests to try and keep in balance in your role. So how, getting down to the fundamentals, how do you cope with that?
So I was just thinking as Rachel was talking then, I mean, for me, it's really about being clear and having that shared vision, being really clear what you stand for, you know, as a business or as a family business. And I've some experience of that, and then, you know, agreeing how you're going to then deal with those priorities. And I think if you can be clear up front, then you can, you know, it removes any removes a lot of the tension, because so much of you know, what I see, you know, standing outside of farm business, where relationships break down, it's largely because of misunderstanding. And I think, you know, that approach may seem to a lot of farmers as being a bit twee, but I think, you know, to hear what Rachel's done this week, you know, meeting as a family, agreeing that way forward. I mean, certainly I'm hugely envious of that, reflect on my own personal experience and some of the things that we're going through as a family back home at the moment following a family illness. So, you know, I wish we'd done what Rachel had done in that business some time ago. But I think that those principles are equally applicable to the NFU, and if we can, as a governance board, as a policy board, as NFU council, be very clear on the way we're going forward, then it removes the problems that may arise in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. And Adam, you touched on it in what you were saying, but is there anything that the course particularly helped you to get straight in your mind, how you keep priorities in balance?
I think it probably, you know, back to that idea of having the time to reflect and think. I certainly don't do this all of the time, but going on the course has helped me since in making sure that when you get that loads of stuff all at the same time, and I remember this not long after we'd had the course, I covered a maternity leave as director of the Brussels office. It's a big job and I wanted to do a good job of it, and I was keen to do it. But we had my wife had a baby, we had our first child at the time, and we were living in a different country. And I do remember having a word with myself and saying, you're just gonna have to get a handle on this, because you've got to do all of these things right. And trying to make sure that almost like you're not a hero, you're not trying to be a hero on all of these things, because actually it's hard. And you know, I think probably, and Terry alluded to this idea of you know, being honest and an authentic leader, and I think that comes out when you know, it's absolutely okay to say, listen, I'm trying to balance all of these things, you know, bear with me. It's not that you're, you know, not that you're trying to shirk any responsibilities, but I've just tried to be honest since, and still get some of that now. You know, right now would be a moment of that, like, oh God, there's this home and family stuff, and I'm doing my best, but let's be honest about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam. Richard, you've got a question lined up, I think, from the many that we've received.
I'm going to thank everybody on the call at the moment, because we've got pages of questions that have come through. So we can try, and I'll try and roll three into one really for you. What signals should you look for in your career to know that you're at the right stage to benefit from CRL? Rachel, do you think you should have done the course 10 years earlier? There's a specific one to Rachel on the same topic, really. And how much did you know about the course before you went on the course? So sort of three questions in one. I don't know whether Adam, if you might be ready to give it a go.
Okay, that was just me putting my hand on my chin, but I'll answer the question. That's fine. Yeah, I'm going to go with, what signals should you look for in your career? I think I felt at that time, I was sort of casting about. Look, I just moved countries. I was looking about, thinking, what's all this about then? Probably being a little bit indulgent, thinking, what's the world all about? What can we do? And chanced upon the course and thought, well, maybe I need to spend some time rather than looking for advice and wisdom from all over, or trying to get on and do all these different things. Maybe I need to spend a bit of time on myself, if you like. That almost sounds a bit selfish, but to say, well, hang on a minute. You've got all of these things going on in your mind. Get yourself somewhere where you can actually try and apply them. And that was probably a time in my career. And I remember, actually, I'll just quickly say this, whether this means now 7 years on a minute. I remember somebody who came on the course with me, and I think he's on this call, talking about things going in 7-year cycles. And I think there's something in that, definitely, because it was about 7 years in to working for the NFU when I came on the course. And it's now 7 years on from doing the course now, as we talk. And I think there's something in that. I don't know where the science comes from, but basically, you just have a feeling, and there's 100 people on the call who are interested, so they've obviously got that feeling.
Yes, thanks, Adam. I thought that. Rachel, any thoughts? Is there a right time to do it?
Right. Oh, crikey. Well, for a start with the career, the interesting one about signal about career, I was working before I did this, before I became a farmer. I didn't have a choice. Well, yeah, I did have a choice. I could have carried on working in my career, but actually, no, I walked away from it and I took a plunge because I believed in our ambition on the farm. So you just tend to know some things happen that make you take that step. Regarding doing the course 10 years ago, oh my God, I wish I'd done it 20 years ago. But did I have the knowledge I have now to have actually benefited to the full degree to have done it 10 years ago? I don't think so. I was in a different place. Personally, I was in a different place. The business was in a different place. We were still in survival mode. And I think what doing the course for me, I was in the right place last year to do it because it was that next step. It was, where do we go next? What's next? And it's given me the tools to be able to pull that together and do that what's next. Not just for me, but for the business and for the next generation, if you like, the succession. And about, what did I know about the course before I went on it? Absolutely nothing. And anybody that goes on the course, keep it that way, because it's special. I can't explain it to you. It's special because if you go with a fresh mind, you will take more from it. And I think that's a really important take home for anybody that wants to go on this course. Don't go with any ideas at all. Just take it as it comes and you'll love it.
Thanks, Rachel. Hopefully that's intriguing lots of people. Terry, your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, I think the time to do it is at a time when you are perhaps asking yourself lots of questions, when you are hungry for development. I was very sort of hungry for development in my late 20s, early 30s. And I think, Adam's point about cycles and, preparing for change, the sort of in the last, since 2004, the two big jumps that I've had to make have been from sort of head of department to director level, and then director level to CEO. And I'm running my second trade association now, albeit this one's just enormous compared to the first one, where I was only managing 4 staff. But I think development in advance of those big career changes, particularly where you are having to lead, a large department or a large organisation, investing in that development, again, it's part of that mix of stuff that I did that prepared me for that pretty busy decade.
Thanks, Terry. I'm going to hand back to Jeff with the next question.
Right. Well, there are just so many questions here. I'm just going to pick out one which hopefully will encourage a succinct answer from each of our speakers, because we're drawing to a close now and we're determined that we will finish on time, because there's probably kids climbing up the wall, or there's staff waiting to be talked to. Anyway, so the question here I've got is from Richard. Having had the opportunity to have an insight into the mindset of some top industry leaders on the course, are there any quotes or messages from specific speakers that have stuck in your minds since attending CRL? Now, I know Terry's mentioned about Brian Waters, but are there any quotes or any individuals that have given you a particular inspiration? If I can start off with Adam, please.
Yeah, I hope I'm not giving too much away, and maybe things change over time, but just a flashback now, just when you answered the question. We had a talk from an A&E doctor, and it wasn't what he said, it was how he described how they work in A&E when people come in. And I never knew this. They have marks on the floor, coloured marks on the floor around the bed. And whatever your job is when a patient comes in, you stay within your area, whether that's somebody close at hand, a nurse, an anaesthetist, a doctor, and it's all step back, and everybody knows exactly what they've got to do, and they've got to stay in their area, and they're all marked up with colours on. I remember thinking, that's so simple in many ways, but isn't it so obvious? And reflecting on it, when we're working with teams or organisations or groups of farmers, if everybody knows what their bit is to do, we'll make progress. And that is a huge amount of, so many of us, whatever job you're in or whatever business you're in, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Making sure that everybody knows what they have to do and they're doing the best job they can at it. And that equally applies to us in leadership positions as well. And that's my answer.
Thank you. Terry?
Thank you. Look, this is deeply unfair because it was 2004 and I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. But look, there's something that, and people on this call may have heard me say it before, and it's I use it a fair bit, and it was something an old colleague said to me years ago. And of course, in the lobbying game, there are lots of moving parts and lots of people who are involved. And you might have a colleague that thinks they've been hugely instrumental, and then others come in and claim the credit. And the phrase was, "Success has many parents, but failure is an orphan." And I love that. I think it's great, and I see it in action every day. But sorry, I cannot think of, other than the inspirational words of Brian Waters from 2004. I couldn't give you one of Brian's lines, certainly.
Right. Well, it's a bit unfair, that question on you, Terry, but you'd already picked up about Brian. So, Rachel, you haven't got the same excuse.
No.
Just 1 year on.
Right? Yeah, but I'm terrible with names. Come on, anybody that knows me does that one.
You don't have to give names. Is there anything that...
I've got there's two that jump out, mate, and I believe in it so much. Those that succeed surround themselves with good people, and that is your team. You've got to have a good team around you, and that team can be absolutely anybody. The least likely person can be a member of that team, no matter how small a part they make. And another one that I just think is so right for the time: prepare to change. We had to change our business to survive. We are now going through huge change. Everything's changing. The world's changing. Our industry's changing. And see the risks and grasp the opportunities, because they are there. You've got to dig deep sometimes, but they are there.
Thank you, Rachel. Richard, over to you.
Thank you, Jeff, very much. We're right out of time on this, but before we wrap up, obviously want to say a huge thank you to the three of you for your time. And we've got someone else to just to have a reflection, because I want to introduce you to Gavin Lane. Gavin, who is a farmer and businessman, but Gavin has now risen to the dizzy heights of being chairman of the education committee of the Worshipful Company of Farmers. But more than that, Gavin was a course member on the very first course back in 1996. So Gavin, can I just ask you perhaps just a reflection of what you might have heard for just a minute or so before we wrap everything up and say goodbye in our allotted time. So over to you, Gavin.
Thank you very much, Richard. Yes, as you hear, I'm now chair of the Education Committee. But at the age of 26, I came on the Challenge of Rural Leadership course. I've been married a year. I started my business the year before that. I had a sizable overdraft, a contract farming agreement on 500 acres of arable land, and I really didn't know very much at all. In those days, we didn't have the internet. We wrote everything down. We had to I think life was very, very different. But I think that the core aims of the course still shine through to this day, in the fact that it is called the Challenge of Rural Leadership. It's not the Principles of Rural Leadership or Rural Leadership for Dummies. It is the challenge, and we all have to accept that challenge. We have to accept that challenge in our business, and we have to accept that challenge if we want to be leaders in the rural economy. And you can either approach that with a certain amount of fear, or you can approach it with a certain amount of focus and a certain amount of ambition. And I think the course overall teaches you to be able to do that. It's not just about the building of teams, which I think is really important, but I think it's also about teaching about self-awareness, and probably the most important thing is that it also teaches you about how other people see you, and that's really, really important if you're going to go forward and certainly lead people, because you need occasionally to step back and see how they actually see you. So I think there's an awful lot to be gained by going on this course. It adapts, it moves forward. Richard's an amazing course director, and I think I would sort of endorse it to anyone out there. It's a great way to go. And thank you to all our panelists, and thank you to you, Richard. It's been most informative. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you, Gavin. And hope everyone else is perhaps going to join us on screen. It's nice that Gavin, and we hope you can join us in 12 months' time in Dartington when the 25th course reconvenes. So really, just to bring everybody back on screen, and just to say the many people that are with us on this webinar, our first webinar, to say that if you have sent in questions, detailed questions about the administration of the course, there's been some questions about cost and timings and things like that, then Ali, who you'll see now, Ali Buncombe's email address, we're very happy for you to send through questions that we can supply you with details about the course and the technical details of the course. Those of you who've sent in questions, we'll endeavour to supply an answer to you direct. But thank you for that. We've concentrated mainly on the reflections of the course this time. This is our first webinar, and we want to say is potentially we could do a few more, but we'd very much like your feedback on the style, the reflection of this particular webinar, and let us know what you think. So we'd love to produce another one if it hits the mark and you would like to hear some more speakers associated with CRL. So really leaves me to say in the last minute or two that we've got, again, just to reiterate, a huge thank you to the Worshipful Company of Farmers, and to our three speakers, to Rachel, to Terry, and to Adam, who've been so good, so insightful, so inspiring, and so open and honest with us about their reflections of the course. It's been really good, and hopefully gives everybody some time for thought and for reflection on, hopefully, on the webinar and the things you've heard today. As I say, it's that wisdom that's come through that we're trying to do, rather than a teaching session or something like that. So many thanks, and I'm sure that if you could hear, you'd hear applause from across the airwaves, etc., and all the way from our applicants, which, again this year, applicants from Australia and other places outside the UK. So I'm going to end now by saying stay safe and many thanks. So thanks again. Bye for now.
Bye.
Very good.